All right, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom. Welcome everybody to the Black First Roundtable. And today our topic is going to be leadership. We're going to look at an interview Minister Farrakhan did with Mike Wallace back in '96. It was a very impressive interview. Back then I was still in the military and I came to work that morning and my commander said, "Man, I saw that video. I respect that Farrakhan. That man's something else." Now, of course, I wasn't expecting the cracker to say that, but that's what he said. And he kind of treated me differently after watching that interview. Really did. And it was interesting. But we're going to look at that. We're going to discuss some things and we're going to find out what is the type of leadership that is called for in the crisis that we are in. We're going to go ahead and open up and introduce our panel. We'll start with Sister Gwen, then we go to Sister Neff, and then we'll go right ahead into our topic. So the panel is open. Peace and blessings, Sister Gwen. Come on in and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Sister Gwen B. Advocate for Black separatism to include homeschooling and interracial marriages. I'm against their interracial marriages or dating. And I want Black separatism. Think that our planet is in crisis because we've been invaded by a demonic force. That's everything I'm saying that I'm saying and going to say this evening is going to always circle back to those points. Okay, that's all you need to know about me, so get ready.
Well, Sister Gwen, I want to ask you real quick. A question real quick. Does your can you hear me?
It's breaking up, but okay, go ahead.
Okay. Black separatism, does that equal to Black supremacy?
Really. I think nature gave us all the gifts. Gave us a lot of gifts. Excuse me, that other people didn't get, but I think it's just from us being the oldest race on the planet. So we've got a lot of gifts that they didn't get, and a lot of things that I think are very fortunate that we aren't using and we have been told were bad things. So I think that we're superior for our purpose, as everything is in nature. Demons are superior in their purpose against a non-demon. So, but I do think we are very blessed people. I would have chose Black in heaven. I would have chose my exact form.
So
I would have chosen. I would have picked it out.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Sister Gwen. Sister Neff. You on mute.
Here goes the awkward introduction. I never know what to say when folks are like, introduce yourself. Well, I'm Neff, and I'm just an average girl. Like everyone else, the struggle is real. The historical facts about Black people on this planet as it relates to their white counterparts have been under attack and still continue to be under attack. So each of us have a responsibility, and I'm stepping up to serve in that role, serve in that responsibility, and take that level of accountability to ensure that there's a future for my children, or there's a future for the continuation of the Black race as a whole.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Sister Neff. Doc?
Dr. James Thomas Jones III, Captain Viola Jones's baby boy. Love folk, love freedom, love justice. African American Studies professor, and father of a way too grown and old 19-year-old boy who I wish he was all about 7 still. He's outgrown me, and that it hurts my heart. But he actually just made state in the robotics engineering competition. So So he's taking his team to the state championship. So we'll be there supporting.
Oh, wow. Excellent. So he's building robots?
Yeah. Those like battle bots that you, if you've ever seen the show Battle Bots, yeah, he's the builder on the team. So he's the one that makes it go and does all those things. So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's all right. I like that.
I wanted him to be a historian. He wasn't with it. You know what I'm saying? He let me know that the history thing wasn't gonna be his thing. Yeah. And then looked me in the eye and said, "Don't push me because I'm close to the edge." And I'm like, okay, so hip hop on me. Okay. I just let it alone and support where I can.
Okay, excellent. So we're talking today about leadership, and we're going to look at how have leadership in the past been effective? Was it something good for us, or was it something not good for us? And so the first video we're going to look at and go through is an interview Minister Farrakhan did with Mike Wallace. So Doc, you can go ahead and push play.
Nigeria, which is, if not the most corrupt nation in Africa, and it could be the most corrupt nation in the world, Minister Farrakhan.
Oh, now, Mr. Wallace.
It is the most corrupt nation that I have ever covered. I've been there 25 years ago, and I've been there as recently as last year.
Fine. So what? 35 years old. That's what that nation is. Now, here's America, 226 years old. You love democracy, but there in Africa, you're trying to force these people into a system of government that you just have accepted. 30 years ago, black folk got the right to vote. You're not in any moral position to tell anybody how corrupt they are. You should be quiet and let those of us who know our people go there and help them get out of that condition. But America should keep her mouth shut wherever there's a corrupt regime, as much hell as America has raised on the earth. No, I will not allow America or you, Mr. Wallace, to condemn them as the most corrupt nation on earth when you have spilled the blood of human beings. Has Nigeria dropped an atomic bomb and killed people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Have they killed off millions of Native Americans? How dare you put yourself in that position as a moral judge? I think you should keep quiet, because with that much blood on America's hands, you have no right to speak. I will speak because I don't have that blood on my hand. Yes, there's corruption there. Yes, there's mismanagement of resources. Yes, there is abuse. There's abuse in every nation on earth, including this one. So let's not play holy to moralize on them. Let's help them.
I'm not moralizing. I'm asking a question, and I got an answer.
Why would you put it as the most corrupt regime in the world? That doesn't make sense.
Can you
to
think
me.
of one more corrupt?
Yeah, I'm living in one. I'm living in one. Yes, you've done a hell of a thing on this earth, so you should not be the one to talk. You should be quiet when it comes to moral condemnation, in my judgment. I didn't mean to be so fiery.
No, that's good. That's good.
That's my passion.
I first recognized the passion of the Black Muslim movement and Louis Farrakhan way back in 1959 when I anchored a broadcast entitled The Hate That Hate Produced. The Black Muslim meeting we filmed included a mock trial, a kind of passion play, where the white man was judged for crimes against the black race. The voice you will hear is that of the prosecutor. This tape will show you why white America was worried about the black Muslims.
I charge the white man, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, with being the greatest murderer on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest peace breaker on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest adulterer on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest troublemaker on earth. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I ask you, bring back a verdict of guilty as charged.
I'm sure you remember that. You wrote it.
Yes.
And you
But-
believed that then?
Oh, yes, I believe it now. History is not false. If he says that the white man did all these things, I did not write the white man's history. That history is written in murder, in the bloodshed of the darker peoples of the world, and even in the bloodshed of your own people.
Back at that time, Elijah Muhammad, the man whom you revere and still regard as the Messiah, in a certain sense, no?
Yes?
He wanted a separation. I couldn't even talk to him. Do you still believe in separation of the races?
I believe, Mike, that if we can't get along in peace, then we should separate. We have serious differences that are exacerbated now over time between black and white. The question that we have to answer, are those differences irreconcilable?
Are they?
I don't know. Have we tried as hard as we could to reconcile them? And if we have, and we cannot, then separation would be the best answer.
But you are suggesting that it's basically the white man's fault.
Oh, no, Mr. Wallace. I'm not going to say that. Because justice would not be served if I said it was all the fault of white people.
Reason that
we have to take some blame in this ourselves. As black people, we can't sit around waiting for white people to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves. And our failure to do this is our fault. White folk have done bad by us in the past. Yes, that is true. And they do some bad by us today. But if we did better by ourselves today, we could help to reconcile this difference.
Farrakhan's call for black men to do better for themselves was the theme of his Million Man March. Last fall, he...
All right, perfect. So now I just want us to have a little discussion on that part of that video that we watched. First of all, I'm going to ask, before we go into what the cracker think about the minister, I want you all to go into what your perceptions or your understanding of, who you think the minister is. How do you see him? And how did you come about your view? Because he's viewed one way in the media. And if your view is going to be different than what the media shows, then how did you come to your view on Minister Farrakhan? And we'll go ahead and start with Sister Gwen.
Well, I did see that interview and I enjoyed it, and I still enjoyed it then. I enjoyed it even more now, was because he looked him in his eye and said what he had to say. He never backed down, he didn't retreat, and he was unapologetic. And I still like that about him. I think I'm more, I'm more, I think less now than I did then, because he's, from what I understand, the Nation of Islam is not what it used to be. I think there are white people in it that say they're a Nation of Islam, and some things, I forgot what it was. But anyway, I think he backed down a little bit on some points he made. I think he's getting soft on an issue or two. But when I remember that, and when what I think of the Nation of Islam, they still have a lot of respect in the community because of the action they took and what they did and what they do. Because you can see them still doing. You can see them pulling people up off the street and off their backsides and getting them cleaned up and in a tie and doing hygiene and taking care of themselves, trying to make a living, doing something for themselves. I've seen them clean up people, get them off of drugs and alcohol, and put them to work, to get them to work for themselves and build them up. They have turned around a lot of people's lives. When during that time, about those years, they was white people were saying a lot of bad stuff about the Nation of Islam. And so what I did was go to a mosque and sit down and listen. And that's when I got even more impressed with the Nation of Islam. I went there. I mean, as I was coming in, I told the sisters that I wasn't going to join, but I did want to hear what they say. And at that time, I was in college in history. I was a history student. And as they would preach as they would tell their story or tell their point that day, I would compare what they say to my history books, and they'll be right on the money consistently. This is how it started. I would listen to what they say and go compare it to history. I would take classes like the Arab-Israeli conflicts, story of Africa, history of Africa, all kind of history classes about that part of the world. And all of that, and I would compare that to what they were saying at the platform, on the pulpit, on the lectern when they spoke, and I would compare it, and they were consistently right. And then as it went on, I started using the Nation of Islam to compare my history books, because the Nation of Islam were consistently right. So I was using their stuff. I mean, it was totally reversed. I was using history books to see if I could find their stuff. Then it reversed. I was using the Nation of Islam teaching to compare my history books. And I had to smile because it was, right there. All of it is right there. It is absolutely true. And I looked at it. I saw it. It's all written right there. And so I still marvel at that, and I'm still like that. So I ain't got nothing bad to say about them. I don't join because I don't like joining, for the same reason I don't want to join the Christianity. Mm-hmm. I don't think that it's a closest thing to what Black people have for what we need, but it's not quite there yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. Mm-hmm. And there's no white folks in the Nation of Islam.
I'm glad to see that. I'm glad of that.
Yes, ma'am. Sister Neff.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. The question is, Minister Farrakhan, what do you think about him? And is your thinking about him the same as what the media portrays of him?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We know the American media to be a lie through and through. And one of the things they hate the most is an honest Black man. I think I saw in that interview a man, first of all, I really, through what I've heard of the nation and what I've seen of its people and what it's been able to produce, is just a thing to really reverence and respect, because the people that come out of the nation are just very disciplined and lovely people. They're about Black love. They're about representing the Black family. And that's something I really respect. But just as a leader and as a man speaking, I think he spoke very honestly and passionately about his people and wanting better for them. And that's opposite to what the media portrays. I think there was even one point in the interview where it says, the hate that hate produced. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, which part of that showed hate? I didn't see the hate. So that was very interesting. But yeah, exactly the opposite of what the media portrayals is what I saw in that interview.
Excellent. Thank you, Sister Neff. Welcome, Brother Carlton. Doc?
There are a couple moments in American history that are truly, how we talk about the 7 wonders of the world. One of the racial wonders for me is how those white folk didn't kill Frederick Douglass when he delivered what to the slave. It's the 4th of July. Mr. Farrakhan is in that same ballpark. I don't know how they didn't kill that Negro right there inside of the studio. His truth is impeccable. His historical basis is astounding. And it reminds me of a moment that Brother Malcolm has where he says quite simply that the white man made a big mistake when he allowed me to see his history books. That history is, it's what it is. It's there. There's nothing that you could say if unless you've already, and this is really what the American media does so often. And I don't care if you're talking about the left or the right, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, they start with a conclusion and try to reverse engineer their way back to it, and then put the puzzle together for you. There's nothing, it's the same thing that Khaled would do, Malcolm would do. It's firmly buried, not in a half truth, but in a unabashed whole truth that may be the lens and the angle that you may be looking at it may be different. But the car crash happened. You might have just been on the left side and they explained it to you from the front right. There's nothing that you could say about what he says. And my aunt Joan, my mother's oldest sister, God rest her soul, her first exposure to Minister Farrakhan was the Phil Donahue interview. And she calls me and she says, yeah, see that nigga there, that's a dangerous nigga right there. Okay. She said, he had me ready to go out into the streets right now. Said, and he's smooth too. And I'm like, yeah. So my initial exposure to him is, of course, his association with the Nation of Islam. I really, except for what the Jews say about him, I'm really not aware of what white folk are saying. I know the Jews hate him, but now my perspective on my brother can't be, it can't be anything but positive. I'm glad I was not there with him while he was saying that, because if you were watching me, even when the video was playing, my mouth fell open. And I've heard this before, that, he made me act the way I've seen Black folk act, especially my students, when white folk come around. And it makes you, I don't know if it's a genetic thing or DNA thing, where you make eye contact with the person that's talking, and then you divert your eyes to the left, like you do know they right there to your left. And when you come across somebody that don't care that they in the room, it can be unsettling, to you. And I'm really gonna have to go back when I go back to class. I'm gonna have to apologize to my students because they did that to me this past week. But yeah, he's a bad boy, and that's all. I don't. He's the stuff that nightmares are made of. That you have a dream that you get ready to be this speaker and you're getting ready to debate somebody in front of a stadium full of people, your fans, and you walk out there from behind the curtain and there's Minister Farrakhan sitting there smiling at you. So yeah, no, leave him alone. White folk, leave him alone, because he gonna do it to y'all if y'all stand in front of him. So just leave him alone, and I yield.
Awesome. Thank you, Doc. Brother Carlton.
So I'm assuming talking about Minister Farrakhan, this Donahue speech. What's my context here?
No,
Yes.
it was Mike Wallace.
Mhm,
Okay, I'm like, also okay.
mhm.
Oh
And
shit.
so-
Oh wow.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, wow. So I think what makes Farrakhan unsettling is not the words he says. I don't think that's the issue. I think the fact that he backs them up with his actions and who he is. So the thing is, everything white folks have pinned black folks as lazy, shiftless, ill-disciplined, drunkards, fornicators, all those different things. Can you say any about those things about Mr. Farrakhan? The answer is absolutely positively not at all. I mean, we know this man is disciplined, and he expects discipline in his followers. He's well read, he's well learned. He speaks. I mean, he speaks in a language, a very flowery oratory that you can't argue. You can say, well, no, he said something really nice, but he kind of said kind of country. He's the polished. No, brother's well polished. You can't argue with the man, in his presentation. So I think a lot of it is the fact that, God damn, where are we going to poke holes in his argument? Because he's telling truths here. You can argue maybe about individual details and quibble on details, okay, but he's telling overall truths and truisms, and his character's impeccable. You could have argued with other people, oh, he went out and did X, Y, and Z, or this person was doing this, and this on the side in the background. No, it ain't Farrakhan, and that's unsettling that a person really truly believes it, because you gotta realize most of these folks who are out here as so-called quote unquote leaders are out here doing dirty shit behind the scenes. Be that being in bed with somebody else's wife, or being in bed with some company or some organization, or who's sliding money in their pocket. So when you don't own somebody, when you don't know their dirty secrets, you don't know their dirty laundry, they're dangerous. If I don't know your vices, if I don't know the things that trigger you, if I can't get to you that way, it's kind of, see, now they have to kill you. So that's why I have to come up to Brother Malcolm, because Brother Malcolm, shit. I mean, what was his vice after he was awakened to his self? Nothing. He gave it all up and changed it and totally changed. So if you can take somebody who's a hardened criminal and turn them into a prophet, that's ooh. I mean, I don't know. That's a dangerous thing to think about.
Yeah,
So go ahead, Brother Jones. What you say?
I'm sitting back here thinking, did anybody ever get Farrakhan, in the public? And I came up with one, and that's what's had me laughing. Rush Limbaugh.
Okay.
You remember Rush Limbaugh used to call him Calypso Louis?
He would, oh yeah, because the brother could sing and the brother could play the violin. You get the fuck out of here. I mean, if that's the worst thing you can come up with, god damn.
He used to be a calypso musician, and that would always crack me up with it. When he would come up on Fox News, and we have Calypso Louis, and I just like, right. That's the only
That's the only thing you got on me, that I used to sing calypso music. I mean, you can't call me an adulteress. You can't call me a drunkard. You can't call me a druggie. You can't call me inconsistent. You can't call me bought off by somebody. If you can't do any, the worst you can do is call me a violin player and a calypso singer. Well, goddamn, you were just fucked.
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is if Minister Farrakhan was an adulterer, a drunkard, a drug addict, you still couldn't say that. Right. Because Mustafa would come and see you.
Yeah.
And you don't want none of that. That's what I'm saying.
That's a smoke that you don't want.
I mean, I'm all man, but when I look at Mustafa, I just oh shit, hell no. If he was gonna come over here to say something, no, man, look, no. I ain't have no conversation with you or none of that. FOIM private. None of that, okay? White folk, let's walk out of here together and call the police.
In safety.
Don't need it.
Let's go home with all our limbs intact. So I mean, that's the beauty of the man, and it's a model. Even if you don't agree with maybe with his faith, in the spirituality of the Nation of Islam, that if that bothers you for whatever reason, that's fine. I think there's nothing wrong. We all have to have our own conscience when it comes to faith, but you can point all our young men and say that's something that you should be emulating in somehow, some way, in some fashion. The discipline, the focus, the clarity of mind, clarity of thought, the clarity of mission. That's something you can always point to, and you can't argue. You can't argue with it. So, and I know, because white folks don't know what to do with him. They kind of laugh about him. They say, "Oh, he's irrelevant." And I said, "Listen, he's irrelevant to y'all because y'all don't understand what he's trying to do." But because they don't talk about, because what can you really say except it's beef with the Jews? But they're beef with anybody that disagrees with them, essentially. So I really don't take what they're saying that serious. So I know there's a whole different situation with them, but I think that's a model that for young men to follow, to find, and to take parts of that and to emulate. And we know everything. I mean, when this brother's been through everything, he's been put through all types of conspiracy theories, all types of this terrible, mistruths, untruths. His life's been, I mean, you can see into his life, and it's impeccable. And so, I mean, nothing to say. I mean, just it's, that is the epitome of Black manhood. And that's the highest compliment I can give somebody. That is the embodiment, the epitome of Black manhood. With that, I yield.
Awesome. Thank you, Brother Carlton. And it's like, and I don't know why this is, but a lot of different times when people join the Nation of Islam, their family members will turn on them. And, we've had brothers that come in to say, my mom and dad put me out because I joined the Nation of Islam. They wasn't saying that when I was on drugs, but as soon as I did this, it was, nigga, get the hell out of here, and it was baffling. And, even for me, because when I joined the Nation in high school, where I began the process of learning, and, I've said it before, I was the kind of child that had a blonde shag in the back of my head, You couldn't tell me I wasn't Ric Flair, right? So, I'm just cutting up and with this long blonde hair in the back of my damn head. And my dad didn't say nothing about it. I'd go to church, nothing about it. But when I said, Farrakhan, I wanted to go that way, oh no, it was a problem from here to ever. And he still hasn't gotten over it to this day. And it still baffles me that you didn't have a problem when your black son was walking around with a blonde shag in the back of his head, acting like white boys you see on TV. But when he comes into the reality of himself and starts to submit to what this black man is saying and begin the process of cleaning up, you got a problem with it. When we come with that, looking at that and trying to deal with that, what do y'all think that comes from? What's the cause of that?
I can take a stab at this. I think part of it also too is going to make, when somebody makes a decision like that, that's that drastic, and to really embrace that, I think
why expound upon why you say drastic?
I mean, to them drastic. I'm using their language here. I'm not thinking it's that drastic. I mean, it's logical sense to me, but to them, it's oh my God, you're leaving everything we've taught you behind. You're abandoning us. There's an insecurity on their part in a lot of ways, Brother Muhammad. And so they're like, oh, when you bring that into their home, it's going to make them reevaluate themselves. And one thing people hate is when you hold a mirror up to themselves. And when somebody, and I know everybody knows who joined the Nation of Islam, they always, when they walk around, they hold up this figurative mirror to yourself. And do you know who you are in the mirror looking at yourself? And that makes people very uncomfortable because people aren't really ready to really wrestle with those issues, those real, true, who am I issues and where am I going issues. And to them, that's a real challenge. It's not really about you, Brother Muhammad, joining the Nation. It's about the fact how it's going to affect everybody else around you. And a lot of people aren't ready for those conversations, unfortunately. And I think that's the problem. That's the issue. It's not about you doing what you need to do to become a member of the Nation. It's about the fact that, oh yeah, shoot, that's gonna, because it's supposed to be transfiguring. You're supposed to be transformed, by these images, by these things. So I mean, I think about in the Synoptic Gospels, when Peter, James, and John see God, on Mount Tabor, and they're transfigured. They're or when Moses he is transformed. He gets a gray beard. He is, whoa, it's just, whoa, this is an absolute. He's aged he's totally changed by that interaction. The nation provides that for a lot of our people. They get transfigured. They become Christ-like. They become God-like. Well, they reject all these worldly pressures and pleasures, and they embrace who they actually truly are. And for people to see that, that's a really unsettling thing for people who aren't really truly transformed. If you're really in tune with your faith and with your faith journey, it shouldn't really be much of a shocker to you. If you're this kind of, if what I call a social Christian or a social Muslim or a cultural Muslim, it is shocking because, oh, this person really believes this, and it's going to take on this burden and take on all of the expectations that go along with it, and that really is hard for people to see and take. And with that, I yield.
I'm gonna go. Can I go next?
Yes, ma'am.
It depends on the family and it depends on the child. I know that if I had walked in there at 18 years old and told my family I was joining the nation, they wouldn't have said a word, because they know that I make my decisions for me, about me, and what I decide about me, I'm going to do it if I'm grown. I joined the Air Force like that. They gave me all kind of advice. I said, I've decided to go down there. After all they're saying and doing, I decided to go down there and get recruited. Because that's the decision I made. Decided I made my own decisions at an early age and it would be logical stuff. Like I picked the college I wanted to go to, and so that's the child. And the family is my family was supportive. For all they weren't religious. They weren't heavily religious. And during those years, I picked out my churches that I would go to. And I went to church by myself, me and my little cousin. The adults didn't go to church. So that's what I'm saying. It depends on the family. The adults in my household did not go to church. The children chose to go to church on their own, literally. And that's me 14 years old, going to church with my friends. The adults did not go. So that's what I mean by it depends on the family. The next thing is this. Throughout the community, if you look at the children or the young people that have joined the Nation of Islam, you look at that clean, clear skin, you look at that well-groomed hair, the trimmed haircuts, the good hygiene, good health. You look at their all evidence of good hygiene and good grooming, not excessive grooming, but healthy. I'm looking at when I'm looking at Mr. Farrakhan's face on the 60 Minutes thing, and it's well-groomed according to the standard of well-groomed. And they got on their suits, they're pressed, their shoes are shiny, all of that. They got their hair trimmed and shaped up, and they are on the street working, selling their papers, selling the pies, doing whatever, selling and preaching and talking and pushing forward. They speak to the women in the car, like I be driving, I want my bean pie. So I roll down the window to give me a bean pie, and they're saying, hello, Sister Queen. Hello, and polite, well-mannered young men. You look at the young women, they are polite, well-mannered, and carry themselves with dignity. Yeah, and you can see that with your own eyes. You know when you see one of the sister queens from the nation. The women, when they're walking down the street in their garb and in their gear, they command respect. Even the worst, lowest little joke on the street will speak to those women with respect. And so that's not a bad thing. And so when they, if the community or somebody in somebody's family is fighting that, I look at that as sort of the crab in the bucket syndrome. When somebody is getting ready to try to evolve and grow, the family is threatened because that is, some families are threatened. That's a challenge to them. Challenge for a fledgling to go away from them. it wasn't in my family because they didn't want me to go, but I was grown and I basically said so, and I did. And if I fall down, they were there to help me get back up. And that was my family. And these aren't Christian people who are espousing the Bible all the time. These are people who would have who get up and go to work, the ones that can help, but everyone would have supported me. And so the ones that are in these heavy Christian families, I can imagine them having a fit about you joining something that they're not a part of and don't want to change. The Nation of Islam take a Black person to another level. They don't have that little forgiveness thing. That you got to have some discipline. You can't play with the Nation of Islam like you can in Christianity. And to them, that's a big challenge. That's crab in a bucket. They find themselves threatened and falling short now because Nation of Islam is, you got to clean up your act to stay in it. You got to clean up the drugs, no fornicating, no alcohol, and all. Can't eat certain foods. You got to toe the line if you're going to be in it. And those around you, seeing you growing like that, might not be charitable because it challenges their shortcomings. And so that is something that some people can't handle very well. And so I'm surprised they would have tossed him out the house because it's a very unchristian thing to do, but I think that it's not impossible. And so crab in a bucket.
Awesome. Thank you, Sister Gwen.
Mhm.
Sister Neff?
Yes, sir.
You need me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. So the question was about, I gave an example of myself. When I was in high school, I used to have a blonde shag in the back of my head. So I would go to school with this blonde hair, go to church with the blonde hair. My dad never said nothing. But when I started going towards the Nation of Islam, he had a big problem with that, a really, really big problem with that. And so it got to the point where I couldn't stay in the house. I had to move in with my aunt. And then the person who gave me my first Minister Farrakhan tape, his secretary, he winds up firing her for giving me his son that tape. So the question we're asking is, why do you think that some families have that type of reaction where it's okay for you as a Black man to be walking around here with blonde hair going to church, but then when you accept what the Nation of Islam is teaching and you begin the process of cleaning up and you don't want to be that way no more, then it becomes a problem?
Wow. I mean, I think the brother Carlton said it, and Miss Gwen said it as well. It's fear, really. Who wants, I mean, the things of the world, I mean, it's too good. Like, I think Malcolm had talked about how people love to eat pork and, you know, you love sugar. And when that time comes where you have to discipline yourself away from those things, you don't want that. And that's what the nation, represents, is that step away from the things of the world to walk, not the things of the world, so to speak, but to walk more righteously, to have a better path. I think that's fearful to people because this is all they've known. The white man's world that we all speak against, that's all we've known. So we don't want to walk away from that. It's what we've become accustomed to. And so the idea of having to start over is too difficult. The idea of having to live a more righteous life, the idea of having to like fall in line and be disciplined, you know. I think that's just a part of ourselves overall that we don't want to admit. That's a part of our condition, like he was saying in the interview, a part of the condition, we are to blame for that. And that's because we don't, overall, I think in general, we don't want to walk away from this. We're too used to it, whether it's here in the Americas or in Africa. What has been presented when what we've been fed, we have become too accustomed to it. We're now, they don't even need to, all of it is on autopilot now, you know. So I think that it's a part of the mental illness. It's just it's an example of the mental illness that's going on in the Black community, but in people in general. You know that you're ill, but you don't want the medicine. So that's what I think.
And that is a great point that you brought up. Let me actually give you a little pushback and ask you about this. Can you point to a specific time where you think that the automatic process took over?
Well, I mean, here in the Americas, I think historically we see that it happened really in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s. No. I think, no. Maybe the era right after where we saw Black people migrating into the North, leaving their family, being separated from their family. I think that was in the, I don't know, maybe the 20s, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. But on the continent, I think autopilot started right at the point of colonization. And especially when you saw even people becoming more independent and sort of realizing that they could form their own governments. They were forming governments to sort of reflect the West. They weren't forming governments that was reflective of the things of the past, whether they knew it or not. They were forming governments that would be the exact examples of the people who were in control of them. So, yeah, I don't know if that's the best answer, but I would say in my mind, those are some of the points where, you know, we saw autopilot kicking in.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Sister Neff. Doc?
You know, as a person that comes from a highly Christian family, and I've seen that process of some of my uncles, some of my cousins leaving Christianity in favor of another faith or a religious belief, be it Baha'i, Sunni, Shia, Nation of Islam, Catholicism, you know, a whole lot of, we have a hodgepodge of different religious beliefs. The visceral reaction that many of my family members have for those who are adopting whatever variant of Islam flows from a Christian belief of I am the way, the truth, and the light, and no one shall see the Father but through me. They believe that their entire purpose of being here on earth is to make it to heaven. And that's priority 1 through 1,000. And so when they see someone within their family abandoning Christianity for anything else, they see that as an unwise choice that leads to the destination of hell. And it's, from their perspective, their love for you, to try to shun you as a means of getting you to come back within the fold, because they desire you to have a eternal, everlasting life, for you to rest in the bosom of Christ. And they're very, very, very serious about that. And many of them, and you know, and it goes for I would argue, my generation back, an issue such as homosexuality is processed through the same filter, that you are living a ungodly lifestyle. You are making ungodly choices. And the result of ungodliness is going to be eternal damnation. That's why they act so radically. That's why they act so, what we would term, undisciplined and wild. That they would not support you cleaning yourself up under the umbrella of Islam. They would rather you remain slovenly and sloppy under Christ. And when you die, you shall go to heaven and we shall get together again there, versus you living a clean, pure, righteous life here. And the ultimate, when you walk through that final gate of life into death, you will be going to hell. And that's why they react the way that they do. They believe the doctrine. They believe that the little snippets of what they know about Scripture in the Bible is the very breath of God that is infallible. And when you have people who are under that spell, it's a spell that humans you can't break that spell with logic, because that spell has been put on them from the moment that they had consciousness. It's their only way of knowing how to live life. And I yield.
Yeah, and he's 100% right here. I mean, it's a very immature view of Christianity too, as well, because it's very simple and easy to understand. Now, understanding that, James 1:17 tells you faith without works is dead, and that and also St. Paul tells us that people who are fornicators and people who are immoral don't inherit the kingdom. So this idea of, you're once saved, you're always saved. Once under the umbrella, you confess Christ, you're good.
Yeah,
it's a very immature,
and a very
limited view of what Christ really is about.
These people really are, when you add it up, they're buffet believers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as if they're going through Golden Corral or Ryan's or whatever, and they're picking, well, I like this, I like this, I like this. No, I don't want that. That's causing me to have to do some work. So, and they create this plate, and if you don't match up to that plate, you're going to hell. They want nothing to do with you.
And unfortunately, it's I love the people who are trying to preach the word, but it comes from people who haven't really read the Bible in Greek or in Latin or in Hebrew, haven't really digged into the original meanings of the scriptures. It's an understanding, and that's a lot of us who haven't so people who've read the Bible in Greek have a deeper understanding of what Christ was saying versus people who just read the King James version. Nothing wrong with the King James version of the Bible. I get it, people love it, but that's not. If you ain't going back to Greek to read it, I'm not trying to hear anything you're trying to say.
Yeah, my pastor, the Reverend Dr. Johnny R. Heckert, one of the three greatest preachers God ever created. I'll just say it that way. Okay, and I'll give John the Baptist and maybe Paul up there with him, but the brother was bad. Okay. He gave this sermon that I've never forgotten. And he says, when if you've never been to a gym before, you never worked out, he said, when you go, you sign up, you should get a trainer who can go ahead and show you how the machines work, who can explain to you how your body, how it's supposed to be benefited from this. He said, people will go get a trainer to show them how to make it around the gym, but they think that the Lord called them and they'll go pick up a Bible and try and interpret it for themselves. And they get it totally, completely wrong. And unfortunately, some of the most popular preachers are getting it the wrongest. We got a brother here in Houston, at Carlton. He used to go over there and sit under the
Look at you, man.
Lead
I know
it-
I did go over there.
he the one that put them dollars all up in the walls and stuff. You got a brick mansion going on over there. Told the poor and the needy, no, you can't come up in here. Drown. But no, it's one of those things where you really you got to be careful. You got to be careful because quite simply you have false prophets. And for me personally, as a Christian, I got a big problem with some scripture. If I believe that the scripture as it's written is the very breath of God and it's therefore infallible, some very big parts of me, of my ancestry, are burning in hell right now, and I don't believe that a righteous God would do that to them. I can't go with you on that. And that's a sticking point for me and many of my Christian brothers and sisters.
Yeah, because I know my ancestors, they didn't express it from a Christian perspective, but I know they worship one true God. I know they did. They may have called it something else, the way they've understood it at the time, based on their exposure and experience, but I know they worship the one true God. So I'm not, so you need to tell me just because they didn't have exposure to the same things I had exposure to, that they're burning and rotting in hell? Nah, I can't accept.
These people are closer, more recent.
Right. Okay.
My uncles, they were raised up in the same church I was, but it didn't take hold with them, and they chose other faiths. And we all struggle with that. Addiction runs in my family, in my blood, and we all fight it in one way or another. And only the relationship with God, with Christ, gets me through. But I will say this: I have to go lift every single day for me to remain sane. And being at the gym can often be hilarious because those people that I said need to get a trainer, they ain't got no trainer. They just done jumped on a machine and they doing something. and I live. There are times when I would just go to the gym and I would just sit there like, what
and watch.
What's he over there doing? What is it? What's going on? People running on treadmill backwards, all kinds of, I don't know if you ever saw the My Wife and Kids episode when Terry Crews was on there doing that Euro training, trying to get Damon Wayans in shape. But yeah, it's I have a hard time stomaching that there's only one path to a omnipresent, omnipotent God. I believe that if you put any limit, if you can put a limit on God, your God's not big enough.
Excellent. I want to go back to something that Neff said that I found very interesting, where she talked about the autopilot, and she said that she believes it was around the time of the migration from the South to the North that America went on sort of this autopilot where everything was just happening automatically. Neff, am I getting what you said properly? Am I repeating that back properly?
Okay. You are. And I'm not exactly sure like what era that was. Like I can't, my brain is not really on today, but I can't remember the time frame. Maybe one of y'all can jump in and help me. But I do believe that, go ahead.
What do you guys, what are you talking about? Culture? What do you mean when you say they went on autopilot?
Autopilot as in there was no examination of where they were, in my opinion, like examining where you are, truly, I think, when was this? Just in terms of the family structure, really looking to one another to sort of be the answer to the things that you were looking to achieve in the world. I think you saw the fracturing of the Black family, where Black folk would normally be able to lean on one another within the community. That wasn't happening anymore. Folks was literally going to their enemies. They were going to the man to get the answers. They were pursuing things that wasn't even organically coming out of their community.
Tell you when.
Sorry,
Right.
go ahead.
I can tell you some of when.
Go ahead.
The first phase was when the seasoning phase of when the Africans were brought to America, and they were forced to get indoctrinated to enslavement. The second part is the one I remember was during the 60s, when it was twofold. Threefold. One was we got integration. We fought for and received integration, except it was a trick bag. We didn't know, but we was thriving for all the time that we had been in America as Black people. We were thriving for integration and equality, and we finally thought we had it. And that phase was losing Black schools and being integrated into white schools. And then we got indoctrinated to a white way of life instead of being home trained to the Black way of life. So we now have an inferior, absolutely inferior home base. In the afternoons before integration, when the child walked home from school in the Black neighborhood, they walked home within a half hour and were in their family's home, and their home training began. They learned how to act and support a home structure. The other phase part of it was to get the men out of the house by having welfare. Now, some families didn't have a man in the house anyway, but the welfare was helpful. But now they couldn't get one even if they did have a chance to have a working man in the house. And another phase was reduce the amount of jobs that Black men had. That wasn't there. So by autopilot, the way I interpreted what you meant was that it no longer had to have direct input from white people to control Black people. We were already destabilized enough that the process can perpetuate itself. So you have generational welfare, generational bad education, generational dysfunctional family units without two-parent homes. So that's the way I interpret what you meant by autopilot. It no longer has to have any influence or direct influence by white people or by a controlling unit. We are already indoctrinated to perpetuate this the way it is, and it's on a decline generational to generation. And it has been on a decline generation to generation. Only way, and now I'm gonna add my part, only way a solution can happen is that you put a block on this rolling train and then you shift it to another direction. What I did was this is the autopilot and it's rolling along, and we need to block that and then turn it in another direction, up or down or somewhere, but it's gotta stop. It's gotta stop. And so right now it's still rolling on, and that's what I mean by, that's the way I interpreted what your autopilot means. So the most recent one was during welfare. And one of the biggest things that's happening is the children are going to schools outside of communities being taught by white females. That is a devastating thing to the Black community. The young men are looking at this white female as the archetype for female femininity. Whereas the little Black girl sitting in that room, she's on the outs, because the authority figure, which is the epitome, that's what a teacher is to a child. In the child's world, the teacher is like almost have deity status. And you got this thing teaching the child. I'll give you an example. When I was, I think in the first grade, I was going, my stepfather wanted me to go to Catholic school because he was Catholic. And so I'm there in Catholic school, it was 800 students, and I was one of only 4 Black students in Catholic school, sitting in the classroom. This woman was a lay teacher. She was white, She had a short brown haircut, a very bad complexion, sort of heavy set, and she was, when I look back at her appearance now, she was quite homely, ugly thing. But to us, she was beautiful. All the students considered her the sweetest, nicest, most beautiful thing. She didn't particularly like Black people. Now that I know what to look for, as an adult, I can look. But as a student, as a child, it wasn't direct. It was just always like little school things. Like if you have each day, it was a turn where each child has a turn leading the class to lunch, where you stand in the front of the line and you walk. The Black students never got a chance to lead. It was always something. Because I remember me having it was my turn, and then something happened and I couldn't do it. And then it rolled around again, it was my turn, and something happened and I couldn't do it. Just something, incidental. And so I missed my day to lead. In child world, that's a significant thing. You feel devastated, okay? There are little things that people do to children that are devastating to a child, and the child is hurt by that. And so it's a lot of little things that these Black children are going through every day. It was 3 Black females and 1 Black boy. And this Black boy, when I look back, he was going through hell. They talked, I was a transfer student, they talked and they said, well, Tyrone is supposed to come back today because he was always suspended. He didn't spend 5 minutes in the classroom without being kicked out again. When he walked into the room, when the first time I saw him, I looked at him and he walked in, bless his heart, he walked in proud, standing, and he glared at everybody. And I'm so proud of that little boy for fighting back with his soul. He walked in and he stood there and looked at us, looking at him. And he walked in with attitude and glared. He didn't stay in there long because they put him right back out because he did something else wrong. But that's what they were doing to that little boy. And his parents were sending him to that every day. Now I look back and I understand what was going on. But then as a child in child world, he was a bad guy. When in fact he wasn't. He was going through hell, and his parents were sending him to a torture chamber every day. This is what white people do to Black children in school. There's a big reason why I keep saying separate. And we should not be having our children go to the school system, because it's not designed for us to be to come out on top. When we come out on top, it's because of something else, not because of what they did. Because they are designing that to kick us.
Ms. Gwen, do you think with that level of like mental attachment, which is accompanied by the illness, sort of the fiend or the addict needing the drug, which is ultimately all of the bells and whistles that come with white society, and that level of attachment, and then the mental illness, even if you have like in my mind, I imagine like a physical separation without really dealing with that issue, that to me spells disaster.
I say that we will come to balance. We will finally come back to balance in ourselves, because we will be excising the cancer that's polluting us right now. And that's an external force that's acting upon us. And I think that we will come to balance and come to our sanity if we get rid of their influences, such as their food, such as the environment that they control. We right now can't even get criminals off of our own streets, because we'll be in trouble, be in more trouble than a bad guy who's doing bad things. We'll be in more trouble than somebody walking down the street selling drugs. Do you don't think for one second that the men in the community the good men in the community couldn't get the drug dealer off the street, but they can't because the policemen will jump on them. And so I would rather us take care of that. And by separation, I mean that you can be separate and still work in corporate America. But if your mind is separate, and if you are espousing separation and know that you are separating when you get home and in your places and times that you can have a choice, such as when you get off from work, or when you have lunch, you don't lunch with them because their constant indoctrination is what's affecting us. I always say separate. Don't sit down. Don't have times when it's voluntary with them. Don't be sitting across from them from lunch because they're indoctrinating you. Even that simple. If you can help it, don't back away, because we aren't really equipped to do what they do. It's not, they'll run circles around us all the time. Even the females, we wind up fighting our own for their sake, as we do. Did I answer your question? I hope so.
You did.
Okay.
Dot,
Yes, sir.
when do you think the autopilot took effect?
You know, the thing for me is looking at our historical record, I understand that you could say maybe for a certain population, the socioeconomically marginalized, that it took effect. We always talk about the Moynihan report. We talk about that moment of post-integration, of post-segregation, where Black folk are going to integrate themselves totally out of power. I could see that. I could see that argument applied to them. But I also can see the argument of autopilot being attacking that first, second, and even third generation of Black folk who were privileged enough to integrate predominantly white higher education institutions, because they're being in every way inundated with a different value system, a different priority system, that they don't have a larger infrastructure to be able to operate. It's fine for white folk to go to business school and come out thinking that they're one day going to own their daddy's business. We're always going to be the employee. And one of the greatest ways to think about Black folks' association with white corporations and white society is that we're only the grease that is going to oil the machine. And once that oil and grease gets worn out, it's discarded and replaced with new grease. I would argue that this thing, as far as being on autopilot in regards to the oppression of Black folk, I'm kind of hard pressed, to be honest with you, to point to a moment after the founding of this nation that it hasn't been on autopilot, to be honest with you. Because in every way, it's a machine. It's a system that is highly adaptable, highly malleable to shift itself to continue towards a larger goal of white world supremacy. It's not a goal that has even, believe it or not, been achieved at such a sufficient level that they're willing to stop the machine or stop doing it. They'll never say, well, we control enough, we dominate enough. No, they're going to double down upon that and try and gather additional resources. So I would argue that from the moment that this nation was founded, that system of being on autopilot, guiding Black folk towards extermination, has always been rolling along. You know, there hasn't, you know, just really consider that at what moment in history have Black folk ever been able to issue a demand to this nation? not begging, not requesting, not appealing to maybe they're having a good day today and they're going to go ahead and do partially right by us. No, a demand that if you don't do this, we're going to do that. The only one I can think of is A. Philip Randolph's demand that we would march on Washington if FDR did not ban discrimination in the wartime industries. And he does that. He issues Executive Order 8802. Beyond that, I'm hard pressed to think about any demand that you've made, because what is it that you could ever do to white America? What is it that you've ever been able to threaten white America with, especially since integration? What are you going to threaten to quit your job? You know, and when you look at it through that lens, you know, damn, like Biggie Smalls would say, damn, things done changed. And then really they haven't, because every successive generation of Black folk, except for a rare exception or two, is totally dependent and wedded upon these people. And those who are fighting against that system are ostracized, made villains, considered crazy for wanting to have human rights, human decency. So I yield.
Doc, let me ask you about this, because Sister Gwen said that as the train is going, you have to have something to block it, to, you know, make it go in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
As I was listening to what you were saying, and it came to me that in the video that we're going to watch in a second, that was a point where we could have went into a different direction, right? It seems to me that may not be autopilot from the beginning, because that was still, I see it as still as the breaking in piece, because
what's the breaking in piece? From
the founding of America to, you know, us being here as slaves and working and going through the Revolutionary War.
No, but see, you got to remember that the first enslaved Africans that arrived in Jamestown under white control, that's 1619. This nation isn't founded until 1776. So you got 150 some odd years where you've already been enslaved, where that system is rolling by 1776. 1619, you might have had a chance because it was so foreign to the colonists to own someone that they called that initial 20 that came in, they called them half free, because they didn't really have a concept of what slavery was. But as time goes along, you see the system of slavery being built. One rule and decision by one rule and decision. The emphasis upon enslaving Africans is so significant that even the British way is going to be pushed out the way when it's convenient. You know, in Britain, who these colonists, they were British. When a child's status followed who? The father. Mm-hmm. The prince would be the king one day because he was the father's son. Okay. Here, when you have Bacon's Rebellion in Jamestown, where this privileged British cat, Nathaniel Bacon, comes and forges a black and white army of poor people and indentured servants, and they try to burn Jamestown down. They come up with a plan that, listen, we got to get rid of this coalition of poor people. So they institute this thing called race, and they separate black from white. And one of the things, the reason I was talking about a child's status In the colonies, a child's status, even though they follow so much of British law, but once they get here and they recognize we got a problem. If we allow a child's status to follow the father, you know these British women, they like that thing from them black men. Those children would be what? Enslaved. But if they followed the status of the mother, okay, and white men slept with black women, those children that are coming out of that slave woman are slaves. Those children coming, those biracial children coming out of that white woman are what? Free. Okay, so you have an issue there. And so they start building this system that tells white women, if you produce a child with an enslaved and African, you'll be banished from the colony. But that rule is never enforced. And it really turns into an inducement and encouragement for the further denigration and disrespect of black women, to have white men raping black women. When she produces that child is what? A slave. That doesn't go with British law. That's something new. And that's what we're seeing when we're talking about the machine and the system. The machine and the system, you can be sure that they go back to the drawing board all the time. You know, what do you think the US Supreme Court fight is about? To be able to handle the system. Which way is the system gonna go? If you got the leftists up there, affirmative action is permissible. You put people from the right, no, affirmative action it's the system that is going on. And so it's rule by rule by rule by rule. And these rules, we call it the system, we call it a train, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But once it's rolling, you have a hard time stopping it, especially when they have more access to the most important resource we have in regards to our liberation, and that is the minds of our children. As long as they have the minds of your children, you're going nowhere. Because not only do they have the minds of your children, they had the minds of that child's mother and father and that child's grandparents. That's what the system is. That's what the rolling is. And even if you come up with an idea that allows you to escape poverty, they still got your mind. Look at Rick Ross. Look at Puff. Look at Jay. Look at all of these cats. You know, the conference I was at earlier today, she must have been French or something. She wasn't a native speaker. You know how you pick up that, you know, they got a dialect or something. Mm-hmm. But she did the what hip hop owes to Pascal, the artist. Okay. And she goes through this litany of things, and a part of her evidence was Jay, Rick Ross, Kanye, all of them talking about how they admire Pascal and they admire European art and they admire this paintings and all of. Even when you are able to escape poverty, you give it back to them because you need to have a label on you. You need to have a piece of their art hanging in your house. Anything that white folks said is valuable. That's what you need. That's what you're going to do with your money. And so they got your mind. You know, who was it that said Illuminati want my mind, body, and soul? They got them. That even when you become rich, they got you. Look how rich Michael Jackson was. They had his mind. Okay. Michael Jackson ain't had to go through that, please. That kind of money, please. I would have went and bought a nation. Went and lived there by myself if I had to. You know, but you're talking about a system that you really cannot stop because your people don't realize that they're being oppressed. They find their oppression to be enjoyable, titillating. Okay, I mean, just what did we just see with the Super Bowl? You know, it's like Rome in the Colosseum. That's what it is. You know, getting around it. You know, you bring them games, entertainment. Oh, you can repress them forever.
Wow. Okay, Doc, you want to go ahead and start the second video?
Yes, sir.
The past is never dead, William Faulkner wrote. It is not even past. This is Oxford, Mississippi, where the past is preserved in granite monuments that record a tragic and glorious history. But in Oxford, the past lives beyond images etched in stone. It survives in the memories and in the myths of its people. Yet Oxford is an ambitious community facing the promise and the problems of the 20th century. Perhaps Oxford can best be described by its mayor.
Oxford consists of some fine people, both colored and white. It's a town of about 6,000 people, people that like to tend to their own business, and they like to try to help in every way possible in the civic affairs, in the church affairs, and try to build a better community. Oxford is, in my opinion, is one of the finest little communities to raise a family. We've been used to more or less a segregated life. This is something that that our colored people here are adjusted to. They are happy and they're well satisfied. A lot of them depend largely upon the white. And I would like to say this, that the white people here depend largely on them for help and so on. And they will go to their aid. That's what the colored people like. They like someone that if they get in trouble, or sickness, or that church should burn or something, the white people here step in and they help them out, and the colored people appreciate it.
There are 1,600 Negroes in Oxford, mostly unskilled. There are few jobs except as janitors, cafeteria, and yard workers. In the Negro quarter, large families live in 2 and 3 rooms. As in most Southern communities, Negro women are the main support of the family, working as maids, washwomen, and nurses. 73% of Oxford's Negroes receive some form of welfare relief. At the Mary Buey Museum, Oxford's most celebrated citizen, William Faulkner, is memorialized. Mary Rowland is the custodian of the museum. As Faulkner described so vividly, she shares with most white Southerners a sense of intimacy with their Negroes.
The fact that we have a good set of Negroes here, and they don't want to be disturbed. They really are. I have one that I just love. She nursed my children for about 6 years, and I wouldn't have her want for a thing if I found out that she needed something. And I was right amused when my daughter from Arlington, Virginia came down. She was one of the children that Missy had nursed. And I got my son to drive us out to see Missy. And she had also nursed him. And his little boy was in the car with us. And when Missy came out, she said, "Look at my children." And she put her arm right around William's shoulder. And the little boy just looked up at her, He didn't know what to make of it. And I said, "Listen, Billy, she was a mother to him for a while. I'll tell you, she helped nurse him." And so that's the association we had with them, and I presume there's still some good ones around. Of course, there are some getting some ideas, and that's all right. That's progress. But we've got some mighty good darkies here.
Progress in the South has always been measured by the darky and by cotton. First there was tobacco, rice, and indigo to be worked. But by the end of the 18th century, there was a severe depression. Slavery seemed doomed. Then, in 1793, the invention of the cotton gin. Cotton could now be mass-produced, and an economic boom was in the making. Black hands and black backs were needed again to support a land. Who else could work so hard, so long, and so cheaply? But there were dangers in the system. Slaves could run away, or fight, or kill. And so, black codes were established that declared slaves were not persons, but property. These chattels could not leave the plantation without authorization. They could not visit the homes of whites or free Negroes. And for those who had the courage or the foolishness to defy the code, there was the whipping post, branding, prison, or death. As the country moved toward war, white men had established a moral system to meet their needs. At the heart of it was a belief in the Negro's natural inferiority. Slavery was declared not only an economic, but a social good. South Carolina's governor said, "In all social systems, there must be a class to do the menial duties, to perform the drudgery of life. Such a class you must have, or you would not have that other class, which leads progress, civilization, and refinement." And the North destroyed all this, all the gentility and pride and honor that white Southerners called a way of life. More than 600,000 died in the war. 250,000 Southerners. Black men also fought and died. Of 186,000 Negroes who enlisted in the Union Army, 38,000 died. The South lay devastated. "Hell has laid her egg," said a Georgian visiting Atlanta. "Right here it hatched." Galveston, a reporter said, was a city of dogs and desolation, utterly godforsaken.
After the Civil War, everybody in this country, in the Mississippi Delta, was bankrupt. All the chattels were gone, the cotton and whatever cotton had been ginned, stored, was burned, and this country was destitute. And of course the slaves, the free Negroes, were just as destitute as the landowners. And they were both in a pretty difficult situation.
4 million Negroes were free. Free under the Federal Reconstruction Acts for the first time to own their own homes. Free to go to school. Free to vote and hold public office. The first mixed jury in the South was impaneled for the trial of Confederate President Jefferson Davis. Half of the jurors were Negroes. Before 1901, 22 Negroes were elected to Congress. There were 2 Negro senators from Mississippi. 33-year-old Blanche K. Bruce was one. John Mercer Langston, a Negro abolitionist, who became a representative from Virginia. B.S. Pinchback, acting governor of Louisiana. There was graft and corruption. But during this time, Negroes were influential in passing bills for free public schools, abolished property qualifications for voting, and ended use of the whipping post and branding iron. Today, these laws still exist for everyone but the Negro.
I think the thing that Reconstruction did was not as important as the fact that the slave was now free, and a place had to be found for him. And the number, the sheer number, you see, of these untrained people, well, it was a tremendous problem.
A tremendous problem that has always haunted the South. Jobs for Negroes. Negroes who were often stronger, more capable for the work required. A laborless, landless, and homeless class, Lincoln called them, caught in a hazy realm between bondage and freedom. But in 1866, Union General Hatch said, "At issue in the South is not what shall be done with the Negro, but what shall be done with the whites." They were the victims of poverty and poor land, of malaria and hookworm, about whom the Negroes used to sing, "You can't make a living on sandy land. I'd rather be a nigger than a poor white man." And to these whites, there was horror at the specter of black supremacy. Blacks winning control and competing for what had been exclusively theirs: lands, homes, and jobs. Birth of a Nation, a movie classic produced in 1915, dramatized what had now become the prevalent white attitude, the fear of incompetent, criminal, and savage Negroes who, with federal bayonets, ravaged an innocent South. And so, to save the South, the Ku Klux Klan organized in 1865. On horseback with guns, sword, and the cross, they terrorized Negroes and their sympathizers with violence, arson, and murder. Today, though their techniques have progressed to air-conditioned limousines, they are still active, still dedicated to their faith that Jesus Christ was not a Jew, that the Pope of Rome is Antichrist, and the Negro is a beast who must be suppressed.
To describe that bunch, I'd have to use a whole lot stronger than I'm permitted to use, being a minister of the gospel. Amen. They go into the auditorium of the gymnasium for the after football game dance. Then comes along one of the nigger football players, and they all go piled in there together like that you are here tonight, just like a bunch of OICs and Berkshire hogs all trying to loosen a lot together. They go in there and they get to rubbing around, smelling that vanilla flavoring. Could you conceive the idea of your fair-skinned daughter, her dancing partner be tagged on the shoulder by some burr-head, liver-lip, goat-smelling, ape-faced nigger? Can you conceive such a thing? Are you going to do something about it?
Reverend W.N. Redmond, as most Southern Negroes, has been an eyewitness to the vigilante system of Negro control. At 14, he remembers the punishment of a Negro father and son who had killed a white man's dog.
They took him and put him in jail and they beat him. And then they got together on a Saturday. And they tied him with barbed wire, hand and feet. They put barbed wire around the neck and put the father on one side of the bumper and the Negro and the son on the other side of the bumper. They drug them all over the town. And after that, they were drugged to the neighborhood, the Negro neighborhood. They were told that this is the way that we're going to keep the Negro in this place. And they took gas, gasoline, and they poured it on them, and they burned them up.
Freedom and truth for former slaves required new definitions. Sheriff Boyce Bratton comments.
I feel that the Negro here in Lafayette County in Mississippi has freedom, all the freedom he wants. He's not tied by any laws, man-made laws, or made by Congress or any other lawmaking body. He has all the freedom that he wants. The Negro is not deprived of any freedom here in Mississippi.
Jim Crow, it was called. Beginning in 1870, signs went up all over the South separating the races and taking away the Negroes' newly won rights. Negroes and whites were separated on trains and buses. Negroes were barred from white hotels, restaurants, barbershops, and theaters.
I've also heard a number of times that the colored and the white were not equal under the law. That's true. The colored gets the break and the white man doesn't. For instance, two men, one white and one colored, breaks into a store here. In all probability, the colored man would get a very light sentence and the white man would get a heavy sentence. But that's not equality under the law. But it goes back to the thing that I said to start with, that the white man of the South feels like it's actually his job to look after his colored citizens, or the colored citizens, and they are not held accountable to the same stringent letter of the law that the white man is.
That no amalgamation of races should be allowed. In other words, they did not permit intermarriage. It was made death to maim or kill a horse or a cow or a slave.
By 1885, separate schools were the new order. At white and Negro schools, children, using the same textbook, learned the traditions of the past and absorbed the values of the present. In their History of Mississippi textbook, they read of life on a Mississippi plantation. The master and the mistress taught the Negroes truthfulness and honesty as they taught their own children, by not tempting them and by trusting them. With Negro slaves, it seemed impossible for one of them to do a thing without the assistance of one or two others. Of course, some kind of occupation had to be devised to keep them employed a part of the time, but it was very laborious to find easy work for a large body of lazy and inefficient people. And in their churches, too, white Southerners sang and prayed to a God that to them decreed segregation.
Well, certainly I believe in segregation. I have stated that I have believed in it. I believe in it now, and I always will believe in segregation. First, because God teaches it. I think it's God's plan that the races be segregated. We find a lot of scripture on it. And for reasons that I've just mentioned, that I feel that their standards is not up to the white standard. I'm not going to force somebody to go to church with me. And that's what they're trying to do to the colored race. That's what the outsiders is trying to do. They're trying to come down here and force them to go to our church.
I build a house. I have a right to live in that house. You don't have a right to come in and move in with me. I build a church. It may be it's the house of the Lord. But yet, I maintain if I build it, I have a right to say who will and who will not come in. Remember, it's come by invitation only.
By invitation only became the right of Negroes also, as they found ways to live as free men in the South.
Seek the salvation of our kindred and acquaintance. Walk circumspectly. If you're just, somebody know it. And if you're just in your dealings, it'll soon be that folks will take your word. But if you're unjust in your dealing, won't nobody believe nothing you say. See what I mean?
In 1895, Booker T. Washington declared, "In all things that are purely social, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand, in all things essential to mutual progress." By the end of the century, segregation was complete. The New South rose out of the ashes of the old, and the good nigger was the one who once again knew his place.
But as a rule, they are a very happy people. A large percent of them do not worry because they know that they're going to be taken care of. I've had a number of them to remark to me that, well, they know Mr. Brown and Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith's going to take care of us. They know that. They know that they're not going hungry. And they're not going to need for clothes as long as they'll work and do halfway right. They know that they're going to be taken care of. So they have no worries.
White folks were so good to me till when I got sick and disabled to work, to just come in and bring me something to eat, clothes, done everything. Fed me, clothed me, and I had a house full of children and they fed my children. Yes, sir. Been working all of my life, and the white folks raised me. Mister, I tell you the truth, I don't know what in the world I'd do without white folks. Now, that's the truth. And misters, I'm just a white folks nigger. I'm a nigger, and all of my children's a nigger. And all this community in here of Mississippi recognize, appreciate it, and work for the white folks.
The Negro is not a part of my family.
All right, Doc, you can stop
As a
it.
result, I don't elect to have him sit and eat with me. As a result, I don't elect.
I'm triggered.
Well, there's your autopilot.
You should be triggered. If you're not triggered, something's wrong with you. Okay.
Exactly. I watched that whole thing today, and Hassad asked me to look at it. And after I got finished looking at it, I remember telling him that I'm really, really angry, but that I was glad that we decided on Mississippi, because when them crackers come, if they try to come with that foolishness, we're going to kill each and every last one of them with joy. For that sister, that as we go into our closing comments, I want you to reflect on that older lady, the sister who said, yeah, I'm a nigger, all my children's a nigger, and we happy, that we the nigger. And how white folks was, saying that we blackies or darkies need the white folks to take care of us, But yet, like the other lady said, we nursed that the darkies nursed her child all the way up to 6 years, both of her children. I mean, how do we nurse these? They nurse these demons strong enough for them to call you nigger. You nurse these demons strong enough for them to hang you from a damn tree. We nurse these demons. And it's just, it's like they made good niggas out of us. They made some good niggas out of us. And it's time. This is why I say we have to kill the nigga.
I thought of that too when they said that. I thought of you kill the nigga, then you and I kill the so and so and me. I don't even say the word. And then I also thought about that rolling train that
Mm-hmm.
You got to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And that now you and so there couldn't be a better movie to illustrate the points that we were making this evening.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad that she used the autopilot phrase. And I'm also glad that she used that everybody's sick but don't want to take the medicine, but you need the medicine, but you don't want to take it. I thought that both of those phrases were really significant that Sister Neff said.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not triggered. I really don't like to see, I've seen similar, and the operative words all through that was demons. If you understand the deception, after you learn the word demon and understand demon principles as already stated, it all falls into place. Everything going on falls into place. And so that's why I keep saying they're either demons or demon kin. And one of the things is deception. And so we're still rolling along inside of the shell matrix. We're in there. So we got to fight our way out. We weren't supposed to even get out this far, this fast. It's going slow, but overall, we're ahead of schedule because they intended to keep us where we were, but we're fighting our way out anyway. Some of us, it's slow, but we weren't supposed to be able to get this far, this fast. We weren't supposed to be figured out. And so they're pulling the rug out from under us left and right, but we still going up this treadmill, this staircase. We're still trying to get out the bucket. The crab in the bucket syndrome. We done put a ladder in that bucket now, and we're building it. We still wrestling our way out that bucket, even though it's hard and we're still working, but we are working. And so, and it's not everybody, because I think that the majority of Black people in some degree kind of think like that old lady. They are not dead where they are, and they consider themselves comfortable. So they ain't helping nobody else and they ain't looking at nobody else. They are right there. They consider themselves comfortable and content, and they will fight to stay there. And that's when I say that that's part of Darwin's law when we talk about survival of the fittest, because the intelligence is also one of the tests. And so not everybody's going to make it. Because I wouldn't want that lady, as bless her heart, but I wouldn't want her to be around the people who are trying to move forward, because she would be a detriment. She would be as sweet as she is and nice as she is. There's nothing about her that would be for our freedom and well-being beyond what she's already got, which isn't much. And so she is.
You don't think she could be saved?
Huh?
You don't think she could be saved?
I don't think so one bit. She will fight you every step of the way, and she will be a spreading cancer to the people who are trying to move forward, because our instinct is to obey the elder. Okay, that is our natural instinct, is to obey the elder, listen to the elder. And she would be a nice hand that would make some food and feed children, but she would be sitting there every day talking about how good white people are as they are standing on your neck. Okay? Everything about this whole thing was showing how white people would be standing on your neck and do not get out of line. But if you want to be a Black family who is ready to strive and go forward and soar to the stars, these people will not be letting you do that. Picture that house. If she had a house that was nice and better than theirs, they would burn everything she got to the ground after they took it. You cannot advance beyond them, even with your own effort, because it will tear your whole world apart. Okay, there's no going beyond them. You can't. We are holding ourselves back, and I think we can do better than they can.
Hold on a second, Sister Gwen, because we are over time, but I want to give everybody position. Now, Sister Gwen says she can't be saved. Does anybody else on the panel besides me think she can be saved?
Hell no, man. She's gonna be an informant too. I don't want her damn food. She's gonna tell on me. Shoot. Listen, I come there for fried chicken and cornbread, and I'm talking to you about what's going on, what our next steps are. She gonna fucking tell. Hell no. You can talk to her on the side, Brother Muhammad. God bless you. No, not no, but hell to the no. Nah.
She can't be in no meeting. She can't be where nothing is going on.
Neff, you say no too?
Yeah, she's a no. She's a hell no.
Come on, Doc. Wow. I don't know. I just think that she don't know nothing else. But if you give her hardcore truth, the reality, I pull them out. But okay.
Raise a child up in the way that they are to go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it.
One thing I would do is I would take them babies out of that house, though, because she is a danger to those children. And she well-meaning to want to raise her children best she can. In our community, she can't have them kids. We gotta have them kids. That's community's kids in the house.
Let her have her kids, and just burn the whole thing down, because
she had to be isolated.
That line has to end.
She's a monster. Something that was red poison.
The thing about it is, there's so many of her now.
Yes.
And I think that's just the part of that. Yes, and that's just a part of the reality that a lot of us don't want to face. And I think it's really unfortunate, because this is why we're still where we are. because
Yes.
folks is trying to save people that cannot be saved, just like the brother put in the chat. You know, yeah, we don't want to be saved. And this is the truth.
Mm, mm, mm.
And she would be a detriment. Everybody going forward and she's sitting there circling back and trying to pull you back and giving all of her arguments about why she's want to be in the position she in. And she will be going to church every Sunday and regulating and suppressing and reporting. And she's a sweet lady. Her heart's in the right place, but she's detrimental to people who want to move forward.
Reminds me of Lot's wife in the Bible in Genesis. They're leaving Sodom and Gomorrah. God's done delivered them. You are delivered and saved. And she turns around and looks back. And she turned into a pillar of salt. That's what we need to do there. She needs to be a pillar of damn salt. That's what she needs to be. Yeah. We can't do this. We can't look back.
I think in the scenarios that Miss Gwen and yourself just posed, you know, you're talking about people who are the few, but in the truth of our condition, they're the many, and like us are the few.
Yes.
So it's not just one person that's going to be pulling you down. It's multiple people that are going to be pulling you down, pulling you into conversations that you don't need to have, pulling you into a level of thinking that you don't need to have. And that's just the reality. It's time for people who are about moving forward to move forward. Just do it. And those who will come will come. But time for bringing people along is when I hear people arguing about capitalism, you know, really arguing about how wonderful capitalism is, and how there is no world that exists without capitalism. This is the best thing that has ever happened to the world. Name another system. Black folk are arguing. Name another system that is as great as capitalism. What's the difference between what they're saying and what she just said?
The thing about capitalism is that we haven't done capitalism yet. We have the theory of capitalism, but we haven't done. When we have a thing called too big to fail, we're already subverting market forces. So we haven't got, we got corporate welfare. So we're not doing capitalism. We're funneling money to rich people at the expense of poor people. If it was true capitalism, it'll be market forces. The closest thing I've seen to capitalism would be the bazaars and markets in the Middle East, where the merchant is sitting out there selling directly to their customer. That's the closest thing I've seen to capitalism. It's a cash and carry basis. Well, you know, credit card and cash and carry. You buy your product, they make the product and sell you the product, you buy it, and then you give them your money. That's capitalism. We ain't got that.
Is that capitalism or is that like mercantilism?
Yeah, I like that. Merchants, direct merchants, no middleman.
All right, well, since we are over time, let's go ahead and swing into our closing comments. Go ahead, Sister Gwen, then Sister Neff, then Brother Carlton, then Doc.
Y'all already know what I'm gonna say. Destroy the demons, power and blessings, and there's no better things that show the point and why it's necessary than tonight. And thank y'all for listening to me. Y'all done woke me up and everything.
Thank you.
Sister Neff.
Yeah, thank you for speaking, Ms. Gwen. Thank you for sharing the wisdom. My perspective is that keep doing the good work, Brother Maurice, and all of you all that are here. It's needed. It's a gift for me to really be amongst you all and learning and growing. And I really do hope that in my lifetime, the work can begin. I know the work has been done. There's many that's come before that's laid the foundation and the framework for us to continue to build upon. And I do want to see that made into a full manifestation in my lifetime, seeing something like the Black First Initiative here in the United States, seeing some of the works that are going on in Africa. Let that continue so that if there is a world after we're gone, that the next generation of people that come after us will be able to have a place to go to. So
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And also I want to announce that Sister Neff is a permanent member of our panel. So we'll be seeing her each and every Tuesday with us. All right, Brother Carlton.
Welcome, welcome.
Please welcome. Yes, Sister Neff. Pleasure to meet you, sister. Thank you as always, Brother Muhammad. You've been putting me in stitches on Clubhouse, man. By the way, you've been having me crying, cracking up, laughing on Clubhouse. Appreciate you and your wisdom as always, and your fire and your commitment. I always say I'm a prophet of the future that's not my own. I can't fully see the future, but I continue to labor. That's all we can do at this point. We can labor. If we see the outcome, wonderful. If we don't, keep laying the bricks, because somebody will reap the rewards and the benefits of our labors eventually. I'll see you when I see you. Love you all. Have a good week, guys.
Love you too. Dot?
Only thing I can say is quite simply, free your mind, and hopefully your ass will follow. But if you don't free your mind, there's no chance your ass gonna ever be free. And I yield.
Exactly. Well, we thank you all for your adding your wisdom, your patience, your time, your love, and I apologize for us going over, but I wanted to make sure that we saw the older sister at the end. I wanted y'all to see her. Even though I do believe that if we would have been able to give her the truth, then maybe, it would spin something in there and wake her up. But as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm gonna kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black First, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Love you all too. Good night and welcome, Sister Neff. Glad to hear you. Glad to have you. Good night, y'all.
All right. Good night, Sister Gwen.
Good night. Love y'all.
Yeah, all you would have done was wake that sister up to go tell on you. Yeah, that's what you would have woke her up to do. She wouldn't have been able to rest at night.
They would come to arrest you.
Yeah, she would have been looking out. Yeah, I mean, she's looking out the window, waiting to see when white folk light come on. So as soon as that light come on, she said, "They woke now. Let me get on over here."
6 o'clock in the morning, be in their doorstep.
Yeah,
telling.
There's no saving some of our people, and as long as we sit around and wait for them, we'll never move.
And trying to teach them and stuff like that. We done already tried that. Right now, we can't even teach them the basic of what we know.
Mm-hmm.
You go